Welcome into another edition of Checkerboard Chat. I am Ryan Schumpert, co-sports editor here at the Daily Beacon, joined by, as always, Noah Taylor, also co-sports editor at the Daily Beacon. Tennessee coming off a big win this past weekend. First, I guess, big win of the year. Second win of the season. First of a FBS opponent. They finally get that monkey off their back. They're the last Power 5 team to get a win over an FBS opponent, winning Saturday 20-10 over Mississippi State, as they will get ready for the challenge of facing number one Alabama this coming weekend, when it's not going to be an easy one for the Vols. But you know what, Noah, just starting off, what were your overall takeaways from this past weekend and Tennessee's win over Mississippi State?
Well, it was a win that they really had to have. I mean, I was looking at the schedule right here. We all know what's going to happen with Alabama, and we'll get to that in a minute. But now you get that win against Mississippi State. South Carolina looks a little bit more doable. UAB, the game that Tennessee probably was going to win anyway, but, feel a little better about that. You feel better about Kentucky and Vanderbilt. So, I mean, the possibility of a bowl is still hard. It's hard to look at and say that it's going to be done, but it looks a little more doable now. So, I think it's a game where you don't have – the outlook changes completely now with a win against Mississippi State. You lose that game, then you get – whatever's going to happen to you against Alabama. I think Alabama can pick their score in that game. So you have that next. And then South Carolina would look a lot more bleak. Kentucky look good. So now you beat a Mississippi State team that you had to beat, got that out of the way, and you look good doing it. I mean, you didn't look perfect, but I'd say it was a pretty dominating win. I think it was a little more dominating than the score made it look, the way the defense played especially. So, yeah, definitely a big win for them.
Yeah, I definitely think there was no doubt Tennessee was the better team on Saturday. And it just kind of goes back to what we talked about last week. If you just don't know where things head, internally in the locker room, if you dropped that one, obviously I think we both agreed it'll drop this weekend's to Alabama. So a big win. The defense kind of, I don't know if I want to say come out of nowhere, but the defensive line almost did, 17 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions, They haven't put stats up like that against anybody this year, anybody really the past few years, let alone an SEC team. I think we both agree Mississippi State's offense isn't the best.
Right. Yeah.
But still an impressive performance, holding Kylan Hill to, just 15 yards. Just a very, very strong overall performance by that defense. What were your thoughts on, how Tennessee handled Brian Maurer's kind of injury and then the second half offensive game plan with just very conservative?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's got to be one of the more. I mean, the defense stole the show, obviously. When they hired Jeremy Pruitt, he was obviously a defensive guy. That was his pedigree. That's what you expected to be Tennessee's strong suit. And it really hasn't been. It finally looked like it was on Saturday, but the offense kind of was a big story too, because Maurer, second start for him in an SEC game, second start for him overall in his young career, moved the ball well. I mean, he did. I mean, but the 2 turnovers there in the end zone were I wouldn't say costly because Mississippi State didn't get anything out of them, but that's not something you want to keep doing.
Yeah.
But they were throws that probably shouldn't have been made. I think the first one to Jennings, he just decided he was going to go to Jennings from the get-go and didn't even think about looking anywhere else, which is a young guy's mistake. I think it's something he will learn to do or not to do, as his career progresses. But I think in the second half, or really kind of there after his injury in the second quarter, was it 9 straight running?
9 straight runs, yeah.
Tennessee did. So at that point, you kind of knew it was going to be hard for Mississippi State to go the length of the field and score, which I guess they did once. I can't remember where their scoring drive started, but
9-yard line, I believe.
Okay, so they went on a pretty good drive.
They got out there to the 40 on the first play. They hit that little 20-yard pass and then had the target and got toe-to-toe.
So that was kind of the only one they had in them for the day to get down there and try to score. So kind of became a run out the clock situation, which we joked about. But I think that Garantano came in and there was a little wariness. I think you wrote about this in your game recap. It showed shades of the BYU game. It's a game you've controlled the whole way, most of the way through, but, was Mississippi State going to be able to come back and their offense move the ball when it mattered? And they never did, and that was big. And I think that Garantano came in, threw the ball, not a lot, but when he did, it was big. And, and it was on target, and they moved the ball when they had to. I think the most impressive thing was the touchdown by Bird. I think they still would have won if they don't score a touchdown there, but the fact that they're able to shut the door on the game with a big play like that and really put it away out of reach. I know Mississippi State drove it down later and had a chance to score, but was stopped. I think that was huge. I think that was huge for their confidence. It was huge for the confidence of Garantano as well because, fans may not want it. They obviously want Maurer. He's the guy. But you're probably going to see Garantano in a lot of those situations. So for him to come out and play the way he did was big for not just him, but for Tennessee's offense.
Yeah, definitely. And like you were saying, like I wrote about, it was a drive that Tennessee fans have been waiting a long time to see. Just, there's been a lot of cases they just need a couple first downs to put a game away. But, obviously to go get a touchdown and to do it the way they did it when just such a non-2019 college football way of just lining up in power and running it, right at Mississippi State. And obviously they did have to get a third and long. They had to lean on Garantano a little bit, and he made the plays, he needed to make for Tennessee to get the win. And just overall an impressive deal. But like you said, definitely think, it looks like Maurer will play this week, but Tennessee's going to need Garantano to at least play snaps down the stretch. Now I don't know if they'll have to be starting games. They'll have to lean on him for a half. But you just look at Maurer's overall size and the way he that was one thing I thought was impressive. We didn't see any in Georgia game, him running the ball. He ran the ball well.
Yes. Yeah.
But he also doesn't seem like he's too, eager to slide in a situation. Yeah. So it looks like he's
and it showed with the concussion. I mean, he picked up, I think, 16 yards first down. I think it was on third down. He made that run, and he did it twice on that drive. Picked up 2 big first downs. And, he's got to learn to slide there. That's another young guy mistake, especially a guy who that's one of his strengths is running the football. So another thing I think was really impressive I wanted to add there too was you saw a lot of guys contribute on offense who haven't all year. I think that was one of the more impressive things about the fact that Tyler Bird, of all people, was the guy to shut the door on that game, which shows you they're going to need that because Jawan Jennings isn't going to be able to do it for you all year. Marquez Callaway has, and I'm not saying that like they have been. It's not exactly like those guys have been. Jennings has
been for the most part. Callaway's
kind of been underwhelming and been covered and not been able to be that big of a difference. So for I say new faces, but new oldish faces to come out and be able to make a difference is big for Tennessee. I think that's something they're going to need going forward in a lot of games is just different guys to carry the load on offense.
Absolutely, and I wouldn't even stop at offense, really. I mean, it was the same way for the defense Saturday. Right. A lot of guys that, maybe were playing snaps due to just pure necessity, but, Kevon Bennett got a sack, Matthew Butler got a sack. A lot of guys on it. Nigel Warrior's playing the best football of his career. I saw a stat, maybe yesterday was it, in his first 3 years at UT. I think he started as sophomore and junior year. He had 5 pass breakups. In the past 2 weeks against Georgia and Mississippi State, he's had 4. Wow. And he's matched that interception total. He had 1 his first 3 years. He's had 1 the last 2 weeks, too, this season. So overall, a lot of Kenneth George, another guy, people had kind of written off, partly due to some off-the-field issues, but it's not like he had played a ton in his first few seasons in Knoxville either. Salon Page, not that he was playing a ton. He kind of was filled in their necessity. Wiseman's toe-to-toe and went out, but he's a guy that's hardly played at all in 3 years in Knoxville, and he was able to give him snaps at least down the stretch. Not, like I said, it's kind of due to necessity, but nevertheless still impressive. And if Tennessee's going to make a bowl game, if Tennessee's going to finish this season strong, it's going to need to be – it can't just be the Pruitt guys. It can't just be the freshmen, the sophomores that they're relying on to make those plays. They need some of those older guys that they haven't gotten much from to continue to play at a higher level going forward. And if they're going to make a bowl game, I think that's really going to be why. Yeah. And I'll add to that, I guess, this is our second podcast. You all haven't heard it much. I'm a generally pretty negative person, especially when talking about Tennessee. But of kind of one thing positively, I think you look at the rest of the year, I think you start to see a little bit of a theme now. It's games that Tennessee's done well. Kentucky game last year, Mississippi State game this year, where the defense, BYU game, where the defense has really played well, or against teams that really can't pass the ball as much. Tennessee's been able to load the box and really take away the run and force them to pass it. And No, I don't think they're necessarily going to be able to do that with South Carolina with Helinski playing, but I think that's certainly a strategy they're going to do against Kentucky again this year. With I don't know if they'll still be starting Lynn Bowden and a receiver at that point, but and then Vanderbilt, another team that can throw the ball very well, run heavy team. So I definitely think in those games Tennessee matches up well from a defensive standpoint. I think that's where Tennessee can have success is when they stack the box, and I think their corners are. Not that they always play at the highest level, but are more of the more talented guys on this team. But moving on, we'll move to this week. A daunting task, I think all of us would agree. What can Tennessee do, if anything, Saturday to make this game competitive for, maybe not even a full game, but for a half, for a quarter? What can Tennessee do to have any amount of success Saturday?
I keep thinking it over, and now that we've seen Georgia, what they're obviously having some struggles right now. I think that game obviously gave Tennessee some hope because from a talent standpoint, Georgia's just light years ahead of them.
Yeah,
and they're light years ahead of most of the people they play. I don't see this. I don't see that happening against Alabama. I don't see a game where Tennessee jumps out to a lead in the second quarter. I think. We joked about it and we said we'd bring this up, but the thing Pruitt talked about yesterday, maybe, what do you got to lose? Go out there, try nothing but onside kicks, and if you're, around the 50, go for it on fourth down. Because, Alabama's going to score at will. It's going to be hard for Tennessee to slow them down at all. I think the best thing you can do is try to score yourself. Alabama's defense has been suspect this year, I think. They've blown everybody out, but teams have been able to score on them. Look at Texas A&M last week, scored 28.
Yeah.
So I think go with that. Focus on that. You're not going to be able to slow them down defensively. So go out there, and if Maurer plays, I know we'll talk about that in a second, but if Maurer plays, try to score points and try not to get anybody hurt, and then go into. Lead there with your head held high, somewhat, depending on what the final score is, and then focus on South Carolina, a team that you can beat. You got three straight games coming up with teams that they can beat. So try to get out of there relatively unscathed.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, Georgia and Alabama offensively, I don't think you can even compare what Tennessee can do defensively against them just because, Georgia has a good offense, but they're much less of a big play offense. Jake Fromm's going to take what you give them.
Right.
And Tennessee, that was their game plan. They were going to stay back, kind of bend, not break in that game. Weren't blitzing much.
Yeah.
You look at Alabama, I think, of my lifetime, the most talented offense, or, maybe those USC teams from the mid-2000s with Liner, Bush, and Mike Williams at receiver are really the only ones that can compare just on talent standpoint.
Right.
It's just a daunting. I don't see much of a way that Tennessee gets many stops.
No,
I guess if you want to put it in anything, trying to hold the field goals, just always to upset things, try to shorten the game. But I agree with you. I think Tennessee, to come away from Saturday's game positively, more than anything, I think Tennessee needs to play well on offense.
Yeah.
Continue to show growth. I think, and not that this Alabama defense isn't good by any stretch. They're still a top 15 defense in the country, but they definitely have more holes than they have in the past. And you've seen teams like Ole Miss and Duke, some lesser teams, have a little bit of success at least scoring against them. But it's going to be a challenge. And like we said, walking in, Pruitt was joking about the Arkansas team of never punts and always onside. And I don't really see much of a reason, honestly, not onside every single time. Obviously you're going to punt the ball if you got fourth and longs, but I don't think Tennessee's ability to stop Alabama is going to change much if they got to have to go 70 yards compared to 40 yards.
Yeah. Right.
So
they're going to throw the ball.
They're going to be able to.
They're just going to throw it.
Yeah. And you look at Tennessee's inside linebackers, who I think are pretty solid players. Just as a whole, their weakness is against the pass.
Yeah.
And then they literally just have two of them really that have played significant snaps, and Toa is going to miss the first half, so you're going to see Quavaris Crouch, who hadn't played much defense until this August and hasn't played much inside linebacker, trying to play there. J.J. Peterson, who ironically Tennessee won a recruiting battle over Alabama for, but has certainly been rather disappointing in his first 2 seasons in Knoxville. It's just Alabama, I think, is going to be able to run the RPO stuff, take underneath stuff when they want, and I was complimentary of Tennessee's secondary a moment ago. There are very, very few secondaries, probably under 5 in this country, that can remotely match up with Alabama's receivers and quarterbacks. So,
well, yesterday Jeremy Pruitt's press conference too, he pointed this out, and I agree with him. He said there's few NFL teams that could rival that wide receiving core there, and it's like you said, there's really good defenses in the SEC with a lot of good defensive backs. I still don't think there's many that could hang with this.
No.
Not for an entire game.
Yeah.
It's just going to be what it is that Saturday night. And I think that, like I said, I think Tennessee's just going to have to do what they can, take what Alabama gives them. Last year's game, even with Keller Christ, was kind of a game I could see Tennessee trying to do something like that. They did lose 58-21.
Yeah.
But they came away saying, hey, we had a couple scoring drives there. We came away with a pick six. There were a little bit of positives there. And let's move on to I can't remember who they played in South Carolina after that and lost. So I think that's a huge key. Don't let Alabama beat you twice. Don't let them beat you so bad on Saturday that it affects you the rest of the year. Because I think that's what we saw last year. You lost that game against Alabama, and then you had a game against South Carolina that you should have won and lost. Can't let that happen from here on out. Survive it, put it away, get through Saturday night. Don't get everybody hurt or anything like that, and then move on to the games you can win. Because I think I said Mississippi State was huge. The next game that's going to be huge is South Carolina, because if you lose that game, you got to win out, I guess. So, it's...
Well, I think the parallels between this part of the schedule this year and then this part of the schedule last year are very similar, because you had Tennessee got the big upset win over Auburn, immediately had to go play Alabama. Tennessee got the big, I don't know how big of an upset it was Saturday, but a big win over Mississippi State, certainly a game they weren't favored to win. And then you have the South Carolina game after that, which I don't know if you want to call it. I mean, it's a must-win of Tennessee for the most part. Tennessee wants to make a bowl game, but it was kind of the same way last year. Tennessee can still potentially make a bowl game if they lose in 2 Saturdays, but it just makes it a very uphill battle if they're going to be able to do that. Now, obviously, Tennessee didn't have that loss to Georgia State or BYU, or I guess they lost to West Virginia. So they had 1 non-conference loss last year instead of 2, so it makes everything a little bit more difficult.
Right.
But it's certainly, I think there are some parallels between this part of the schedule this year and there was last year. And
absolutely.
It's really just about getting past Alabama as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
With, just not get absolutely embarrassed. Like Pruitt was saying yesterday.
Yeah.
Saban's been nice to teams. Because, I think there's, I don't know if they have to try not to score 100 points, but I do think there are a lot of games where if Alabama wanted to score close to 100, they could score close to 100 on Saturday.
And it's another thing they brought up yesterday that was really interesting, and we've talked about it, but LSU and Alabama, like somebody asked Pruitt yesterday, did you ever think you'd see a day where these two teams were playing the way they were? Pruitt gave his typical answer, like, oh, well, that's just who they are right now. But man, it's that game in a couple weeks is gonna be huge. I never thought I'd see the day where Alabama and LSU could possibly score as much as they are probably going to score.
Yeah.
Because that's 2 defenses, like we said, they're still good defenses, but they're not as. That's just not their identity this year.
No, it's just shows how much college football has changed, and I've always given credit to Nick Saban. He adapted to that change, and when he brought in Lane Kiffin to run more spread concepts and throwing the ball, and that was really the death of Les Miles at LSU. He never adapted, never got that quarterback situation right. So credit at Orgeron too at the same time for bringing in a new system and really buying into playing the Joe Burrow's strengths. Really is what I feel like that's been for LSU, and it's worked out certainly for him so far. They're going to have a chance to win the SEC West and win the SEC this season. So I guess to end it, we'll give predictions. Obviously, I think both of us have Alabama. You want to give us a score prediction?
I'm going to go Alabama 59, Tennessee 24.
Okay. I was saying Alabama 52, Tennessee 17.
Okay.
So similar ballpark.
I give him an extra touchdown.
Yeah.
Maybe late in the game.
Yeah.
When Garantano's in there. Or Stroud, JT Stroud.
Yeah, certainly. Well, thank you for joining us this week. We'll have full coverage this weekend of Tennessee's matchup against Alabama, as well as full SEC Basketball Media Days coverage tomorrow down in Birmingham. Thank you for joining us. Y'all have a good rest of your week.